City departments in desperate need of funding while nonprofits are being accused of misspending tens of thousands. Our team breaks down the findings from the Inspector General and shines a spotlight on the pleas for help from the local fire union. Baltimore County could soon be increasing class sizes to 23 students. Yet one teacher says some classrooms are well into the 30s already. We pressed the county's top education leader over the concerns being raised.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We come on the air with breaking news this afternoon. A third person has died following Tuesday morning's row home fire in Highland Town. Fire officials say a 13-year-old died at the hospital last night. A 22-year-old and 8-year-old also died. It is unclear what led up to the fire, but more than 20 residents were displaced. The Baltimore Fire Department now working with Highland Town residents to plan a fire safety sweep. That means installing smoke detectors and providing safety tips to that whole community.
The state's attorneys didn't get everything they wanted in this bill, and the public defenders don't have everything that they wanted in the bill.
Another busy day in Annapolis as lawmakers consider changes to juvenile crime legislation. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Today, senators debated the best path forward.
That's right. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been tracking the amendments and joins us live from the State House to explain what's next. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, so today the Senate is moving forward, and the Senate's version of the juvenile crime plan is very similar to the one we just saw move forward yesterday in the House, with one major exception: what to do with young kids who are accused of stealing cars. In the Senate's version, kids between the ages of 10 and 12 who are arrested for stealing a car would then go through the child in need of supervision or the SINS petition process. But over in the House, remember, kids in that same age range who are arrested for the first time accused of stealing a vehicle would be taken to a diversionary program instead of going through the Department of Juvenile Services. So now the Senate is moving forward, but really the biggest unanswered question as it stands now is how they plan to reconcile or find out a way to move forward, given this major difference in these two parallel plans.
We did mandatory SINs, so the court has to be involved.
Is that something that you're willing to fight for when this goes into a pre-conference committee, or are you willing to go with where the House is?
No, we're gonna sit down and we're negotiate. We'll see whatever makes sense.
That was the chairman of the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee, Senator Will Smith, and that really seems to be the biggest sticking point at this, where we stand right now between these two different bills. I'm told the Senate does not really want this plan to go to a conference committee. Instead, they anticipate hashing out some of the details in a pre-conference committee, but at this point, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, Mackenzie, it sounded like what you're saying. Maybe they want to try and fast track this thing. What's the timeline for the legislation moving forward?
Well, Kai, the House anticipates the third reader and of another vote on its version of the plan tomorrow, sending it over to the Senate. The Senate is expected to vote on its version of this proposal on Monday, and then again sending it over to the House, where the debates will continue as the bills are cross-filed and debated. That's when we anticipate some of this pre-conference committee negotiations to really begin. Again, they don't
between the nonprofit and the Baltimore Civic Fund, which oversees the city's nonprofit spending. Within 4 months, all of the money was gone. It was later determined $129,000 would need to be paid back. In the report released today, Inspector General Isabel Cumming agrees with that amount. However, after investigating the nonprofit's financial records, Cumming does not see that money being paid back anytime soon. Cumming saying in April, Lazarus Wright's account balance was in the negatives.
They borrowed from Peter to pay Paul, and they actually used the money to pay some other expenses that they had within the company that they were running, and they were buying things that had nothing to do with the ARPA monies.
Now, according to this report, after receiving that more than $400,000 advance, the nonprofit had several large business expenses unrelated to the Clean Corp project. Those expenses include a $55,000 loan payment, a $68,000 payment to the IRS for outstanding taxes, $30,000 for a work car, $56,000 for 2 work equipment items, and $96,000 for unrelated salaries, training, and insurance. Now, coming up in our full story tonight at 5, learn more about some of the financial red flags with this nonprofit that the city might have missed. But for now, reporting live from the newsroom, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, as we mentioned, the Baltimore City Fire Union is one of the departments not receiving any of that funding. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker continues our live team coverage with how the city's use of the ARPA money is being called into question and why the fire union says it could have used that money. Maxine.
Well, Mary, the city was given $641 million in ARPA funds, but the fire department was not given a cent. This, as they say, they've been struggling with staffing shortages and equipment shortages for years.
The 2021 American Rescue Plan Act gave Baltimore City a historic investment of $641 million. But 3 years later, the city has only spent $183 million. And if they don't spend it all by the end of 2026, they lose it.
Mayor Scott has missed a great opportunity, and it really shows the poor leadership and management of the city.
Mayoral candidates Sheila Dixon and Thuru Vignaraja are condemning Mayor Scott for a lack of timely and transparent spending, calling for an audit. Dixon questioning why no money was allocated to the fire department and other critical city agencies who stepped up big time during the pandemic.
To this date, we have not received anything from that.
Matthew Coster, president of the Baltimore Firefighters Local 734 Union, says they requested ARPA money but didn't get a dime.
We could definitely use that money. You know, we were the first line of defense during COVID, and that's definitely something that we're disappointed in.
A look at the city's ARPA spending shows 28% has been allocated for housing, 19% for city infrastructure, 8% for training and education and public space and parks, 5% for violence prevention, but again, none for the fire department, who continues to struggle with staffing shortages and out-of-date firehouses and equipment.
A lot of our firehouses are over 100 years old, and guys are using their own money to fix up firehouses and keep it together with furniture and the kitchens and outdated bathrooms and everything else for today's standard.
Coster says they're the busiest fire department with calls per capita in the country and nearly 200 men and women short, but continue to do more with less.
It's never enough. I would say that, the fire department's like a good insurance policy. You want them there when you need them. You obviously want the cheapest way, but that can't happen when it comes to public safety.
Now, the mayor's budget last year, it did include a $15 million increase for the fire department, but as you heard, it's never enough. We did reach out to the mayor's office today asking why they chose not to allocate any of the ARPA funds for the fire department, but we have not heard back at this time. Reporting live, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Thank you. His campaign did respond to Vignaraja and Dixon's claims last week, saying in part, Mayor Scott's handling of this federal funding is contributing to an historic reduction in homicides, reopening and building new rec centers and playgrounds, including some that were closed by former Mayor Sheila Dixon, investing in affordable housing and supporting Baltimore's most vulnerable residents.
It's rare to see 4 #1 overall picks on the field at the same time, but fans here at Ed Smith Stadium, they had a front row seat. More on the much anticipated matchup between 2 of them. That's coming up next on Sports Unlimited.
Plus, hitting some hurdles on the way to solving the nation's inflation problems. The new warnings in today's report.
A windy night last night, chilly this morning. Hey, we made it to 47 degrees. We're going to see this number climb a lot as we move into the weekend. We're also tracking some rain. We're going to detail things out for you coming up.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Taking a live look at Camden Yards this afternoon, we are just 28 days away from opening day. The O's will be hosting the LA Angels on March 28th. First pitch is at 3:05. Now, the Orioles are gearing up with spring training down in Sarasota. Sports Unlimited Rocco DeSangro joins us from Florida with everything happening down there. Rocco.
Welcome into Sports Unlimited as we continue our coverage in Sarasota for O Spring Training. In 2022, Jackson Holliday was taken #1 overall by the Orioles. 1 year later in 2023, the Pirates did the same with pitcher Paul Skeens. Today at Ed Smith Stadium, two of baseball's top prospects, both selected #1 overall, meeting on the big stage for the very first time. A packed Ed Smith Stadium for today's matchup between the O's and Pirates as 4 #1 overall picks took the same field, but the matchup everyone had their eyes on was the one between Jackson Holliday and Paul Skeens. Didn't take long for it to happen. Bottom half of the first, Holliday leading off, and he grounds out the second. That was the only matchup between the two today. Holliday began the day 0 for 2 at the plate, then settled in shortly after, singling in his next at-bat, then following it up with a big RBI triple to tie the game. For Holliday, truly a matter of it's not about how you start, it's how you finish.
Did we talk about that earlier today? Yeah, so, it's just taking it bat to bat. And I felt comfortable in the first one. Second one got away from me a little bit. But, just settling back in, sticking to my approach, staying through the middle of the field. I was able to hit a changeup. And usually when I can hit changeups up into the middle of the field, I'm in a good spot. So, happy with my last 2 at-bats. It's 2 for my last 2 is probably how I'm going to think about it. So, happy with my last 2 bats.
Holliday could easily take an 0 for 2 start and let it get in his head, but that's not the type of player that he is. He continues to stay poised every single time he steps in, and it's like a new at-bat for him, truly, every time he steps in the box. For now, spring training in Sarasota, I'm Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
Well, we want to see how you're preparing for the spring season. Scan that QR code right there on your screen. It'll take you to foxbaltimore.com where you can upload your pictures and your videos. It is all powered by Stackline. Taking a live look at the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C., the official prediction out just this morning saying we will see peak bloom between March 23rd and March 26th. That is right in the middle of the National Cherry Blossom Festival, which begins on March 20th. It runs through April 14th. Gerard, have you ever been down there to see it?
Bucket list item. It
really you're going to
is.
love it.
I can't wait. You know, you and I have been talking a little bit about some trees.
Yes,
and
magnolia, tulip trees.
Magnolias, they're starting to pop out. I'm waiting for daffodils. I'm a spring kind of a guy. Let's let it get to us quicker. And the cherry blossoms, I hear, just phenomenal. So I've got to go check that out before I can. Good evening, everyone. And well, it was a chilly morning. Definitely breezy. I'm sure a lot of us had to go find our trash bins a few houses down from where we put them out last night, myself included. And it was still looking like we'll have the cooler air around for today, but hey, we at least made it to the mid-40s. Sunshine was around too. Still a little bit of a breeze out there. Out of the west, somewhere between 15 to 20 miles an hour, some occasional gusts to 25, but nothing like that roaring wind we had last night, and it's going to be a much calmer evening coming, but still very, very chilly. Dropping down to the 30s as we tick past around 8 o'clock, near freezing as we get past midnight. So another cold one, but it is not going to be something we have to endure for a very long time. We're going to see a recovery in our temperatures quite a bit in just the next, let's say, day or so. So let's take a look at what's going on here. High pressure in control has kept us beautiful, dry, but look at what's forming over here down towards the deep heart of Texas. And we are talking about a lot of rainfall, moisture, and we're going to see a storm system developing here. This is our next rain chance. All this moisture is going to be slowly spreading off to the east, and we are going to be looking at our next chance of rain as early as tomorrow night. So let's take you through your Friday now. Starting out pretty chilly, near freezing. We'll get some sunshine throughout the day. Probably warming us up to around 50 degrees or so, but the clouds will start thickening up in the afternoon ahead of this system, and we'll likely see the rain beginning its entrance as we move into the overnight hours on Friday night, and we're going to wake up Saturday morning, unfortunately, to a widespread rainy mess. Not a good way to start the weekend, I don't blame you, but we will see some improvements. Now, it's not going to happen until later, so this is lunchtime on Saturday. Now, still quite a bit of rainfall mild to cool temperatures this right around 12 o'clock. And here we go. By 5 and 6, it's starting to taper. So I'm going to be hopeful and say that maybe at least your Saturday evening you might be able to salvage, but most of your Saturday is looking pretty messy here. And the good news is your Sunday will be far better than your Saturday. So first half of your Saturday might be a washout, but as we get towards your late afternoon, rain should taper, will be pretty mild then, and then your Sunday, much, much better. Upper 50s to around 60 degrees, perhaps a few clouds, but other than that, no problems. And our average temperatures are at 50 degrees. We'll be well above that over the next several days here. So good looking trend on the temperature tracker. Again, there's that rain on Saturday. We're looking fairly dry most of next week until we get to Wednesday and Thursday.
Gerard, thank you. Coming up after the break, just a day after the announcement, and questions are circulating over who will replace Senator Mitch McConnell, the three frontrunners, and the divide among Republicans.
I'm Atra El-Nashar in Washington with the latest read on inflation and what experts say about why it's taking so long to get back to normal.
If you're feeling the pain of high interest rates, you'll want to pay close attention to a fresh inflation report released this morning. It's showing more evidence the Federal Reserve's path to bring down inflation isn't as smooth as many would like. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more on what this means for you.
Inflation reports out this month reflecting bumps in the road on the way to relieving Americans of the painful burden of high inflation. The latest reading from the Commerce Department shows the inflation rate in January was lower than it was a year ago, but on a month-to-month basis was slightly higher.
What it is that prices in some areas are going up while prices in other areas are going down at the same time.
NerdWallet personal finance expert Sarah Rathner says more people are turning to credit cards to make ends meet, but it's a tricky time to rely on credit when interest rates raised by the Federal Reserve to fight inflation are so high.
We have heard that there is talk of interest rates eventually going down this year, but we just haven't seen that yet. And so everybody is waiting with bated breath.
Fed officials say they don't have enough confidence yet that inflation is on a sustained path toward their 2% target to start lowering rates. New York Fed President John Williams doesn't expect to hit that target until next year.
The risks to this forecast are two-sided. Inflation may surprise on the upside, or consumer strength, which has been a major driver of the robust growth we saw last year, may fade more quickly than I anticipate.
Another person who's keeping a close eye on those risks is JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon.
I just think it may not come down that quick and people may be surprised. So when people talk about, the market is kind of pricing a soft landing, that may very well happen, but, the odds at 70 or 80%, I would give them half of that, that's all.
Though the economy has a good chance of dodging a recession, individuals may feel something like a personal recession.
According to NerdWallet's annual household debt study, costs are up 20%, while median income is only up 12%, and that's looking at the last 4 years or 5 years since 2019.
The Fed does meet again next month, but according to the popular CME Fed Watch tool, a likely rate cut isn't predicted until June at the earliest. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nishar.
Who's going to replace Senator Mitch McConnell? That's the question swirling around the Capitol after the Republican minority leader announced he is stepping down from the post after November. Most assume it will be one of the three Johns. That's what people are calling Senators John Thune, John Cornyn, and John Barrasso. Republicans are reacting to the news.
I was surprised that he announced it today because it's a long period now of relatively lame duck status.
We'll see who's interested, and we got good people and so forth, and we've got members that are going to get elected in November that hopefully will put us in the majority. But those members deserve to have a voice in what happens here as well, not just the coronation.
Well, many of former President Trump's supporters in the Senate are hoping for a dark horse, somebody who sees the world through Trump's eyes. McConnell and Trump have a frosty relationship. Coming up after the break, day 3 of testimony in the trial for the murders of BPD officer Keona Harris and Justin Johnson. A live report from court. Plus, Fox 45's Project Baltimore is looking at the critical link between third-grade literacy and future success. The initiative's driving change in our education system. And now you can watch Fox 45 News for free anytime on Amazon Fire TV or Samsung TV Plus.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
Week one of the trial for the murders of Baltimore police officer Kiana Holley and civilian Justin Johnson has wrapped up.
Elliot Knox is charged with both December 2021 murders, along with his co-defendant Trayvon Shaw, who is yet to have his day in court.
Alexa Ashwell just walked out of court and joins us live with today's testimony. Alexa.
Yes, Kai Mary, in week one, the past 3 days, the state has called at least 16 witnesses to the stand and presented the jury with dozens of pieces of evidence. Today's testimony heavily centered on ballistic evidence, DNA evidence, forensic evidence. The jury heard from a firearms examiner who testified to his examination of the two believed murder weapons and the matching of his test fires with shell casings found at the scene. Two forensic scientists who testified to collecting swabs for DNA and or fingerprints, including from defendant Elliot Knox and co-defendant Trayvon Shaw, as well as both weapons and the inside of Elliot Knox's car. A DNA analyst also took the stand, testifying Shaw and Knox's DNA both found on one of the weapons. Knox's attorney cross-examining this DNA testimony the most, saying results don't indicate direct or indirect transfer. The DNA analyst confirming. You may recall in day 2 testimony, Elliot Knox confessed to being at both Officer Holley and Justin Johnson's murders and to hiding the weapons at his friend's house, but told investigators it was Trayvon Shaw who actually pulled the trigger. The state also showed the jury more surveillance video from the early morning hours of Officer Holley's ambush. More on that, plus more testimony at 5:30. For now, reporting live in downtown Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Under a new budget and new mandates from the blueprint for Maryland's future, class sizes could be changing in Baltimore County. That means some are getting smaller while others may be getting bigger.
Fox 45's Jessica Babb is pressing school officials on how this change will impact students. She joins us live now from Towson with the very latest. Jessica.
Baltimore County Public Schools says the average class size for high schools will go to 23 students. But one teacher reached out to me saying their class sizes are already well above that, and they're expecting them to get even bigger. In a message asking about Baltimore County Public Schools budget, a BCPS teacher relaying their reality, saying some class sizes are big. As BCPS reduces hundreds of mainly vacant positions in their newest budget and reallocates resources to better meet blueprint mandates. Class size averages in grades 3 to 5 will get smaller, but in middle and high school, they're going up. BCPS says the average class size in high school will go from 21 to 23.
Our goal is really to move Baltimore County forward.
But the high school teacher who emailed me says average class sizes in core content areas are already in the mid-30s. They say their smallest class is 28 students, and their others are 33 or more. They say it's a similar story across their department and with other core subjects. In the email, they say they've been told to expect even bigger class sizes next year. So I took those concerns to Baltimore County Public Schools Superintendent Miriam Rogers.
I've talked specifically about the differences between the current state and FY24 and what are the different steps and the different approach we're going to take in FY25 so that the class averages can be closer, matched to the staff allocation that we're providing and the different tools that we've already created and the training that we're going to provide.
She says they'll be working to make sure class sizes are more balanced, but even so, following some class sizes getting bigger, are there any concerns that it will negatively impact students' education?
No. And I want to share that because this is not going to be left to chance. We are going to be extremely intentional.
School Board Chair Tiara Booker-Dwyer says while she understands concerns about class sizes,
when growth happens, it hurts a little bit.
And with the focus on reducing class sizes in elementary school to make sure the youngest students stay on grade level, she says change is coming for high schools.
One of the things that the blueprint is encouraging, especially at the high school level, is encouraging opportunities for dual enrollment, apprenticeships. And so the reality of it is by the time blueprint is fully implemented, our high schools are not going to look the same. We won't have as many kids in the buildings.
What is the answer in the meantime for students who might be stuck in really large classes?
And so the answer right now is that we are actively monitoring those class sizes.
Another way the school system is trying to meet blueprint mandates is by expanding resources and adding positions in early childhood education. Live in Baltimore County, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
March is National Reading Month, and the focus across many American classrooms is on early childhood literacy.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, students who struggle to read by 3rd grade could face lifelong challenges.
When it comes to children learning how to read, most experts agree the pivotal year is 3rd grade.
So they move from learning how to read to reading to learn other things.
Emily Mitchell is with Sylvan Learning, based in Baltimore County, Maryland.
If students aren't ready to make that jump, they get left behind really quickly.
Mitchell says the importance of children reading at grade level by 3rd grade has been understood for years. Because many students, she says, who fall behind by 3rd grade never catch up.
If they're close to 3rd grade level, they'll be okay, but if they're not, it has honestly lifelong effects.
Maryland's General Assembly in 2011 created a task force to study school dropouts and their impact on the criminal justice system. The report found a connection between 3rd grade reading levels and the adult prison population. The task force found 23% of below basic 3rd grade readers will likely drop out of high school. 23%. For comparison, 9% of children with basic reading skills and 4% of proficient readers will likely drop out of high school. The report then looked at Maryland's prison population and found 57% of inmates under age 25 were high school dropouts.
We want to make sure that we can get as many of our 3rd graders reading by the end of the year as possible.
If that's the goal, the question then becomes, how is it accomplished?
I think you can identify little ones that are struggling very young.
Dr. Carrie Wright is the interim Maryland State Superintendent of Schools. She took over in 2023 with a focus on improving reading proficiencies, something she's done before.
You know, we're living in a new era in public education in Mississippi.
In 2013, Wright was hired as the Mississippi State Superintendent of Education and presided over what's been called the Mississippi Miracle.
It's not a miracle. It's hard work over a long period of time.
The year Wright took over, Mississippi passed a law mandating every 3rd grade student must read at grade level before moving to 4th grade. These laws are often called 3rd grade reading retention policies. They say if a student cannot read at grade level, they either repeat 3rd grade or receive interventions to catch up.
For me, it's prevention and intervention.
According to federal test scores, in 2013, the year the law passed, Mississippi students scored on average a 209 in 4th grade reading, far below the national average of 221. But by 2022, the most recent year for results, Mississippi had passed the national average. Mississippi now scores a 217 in 4th grade reading. The national average sits at 216.
We need to make sure that all of those teachers have the skill sets that they need to diagnose those kinds of issues and the skill sets that they need to intervene in a very early age.
According to Education Week, 25 states and the District of Columbia either allow or require districts to hold back students who are not reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade.
The answer is balanced approach. If a school really doesn't think a child is ready for 4th grade, then it's not a terrible thing to hold them back, but they do need extra support when they go through 3rd grade again to make sure that they'll be successful the second time through.
I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Now, in honor of National Reading Month, our parent company, Sinclair Broadcast Group, is partnering with Reading is Fundamental to launch Sinclair Cares, supporting children's literacy. That campaign will run throughout the month of March to raise awareness and help get books into the hands of children across the country. To kick things off, Sinclair is making a $25,000 donation. Find out how you can help by going to sinclaircares.com.
Taking a look at headlines around the state, in Baltimore County today, a ribbon-cutting ceremony outside of Red House Run Elementary School. The school just underwent a $66 million renovation that expands student capacity and nearly doubles the school's square footage.
Well, the Maryland Food Bank, Purdue Farms, and Feeding America are working together to donate 80,000 pounds of frozen chicken breasts to Marylanders in need. Today, that group held a Leap Day distribution event in Baltimore City. More than 20,000 pounds was distributed to residents. The remaining chicken will be given to other local partners throughout the state for distribution. Now, according to data from Feeding America, 1 in 3 Marylanders are food insecure, meaning they don't know where the next meal is coming from.
You know, as an agricultural business in both foods and agricultural products, we're uniquely positioned to be able to help people, especially with food insecurity. So we're here today with 3.3 million pounds. Behind us is a tractor trailer filled with over 70,000 pounds of product that we're packing, handing out to our community where our associates work and where they live and where their families are and where their kids go to school. We want to make sure that we're giving back to our communities. And so we've got great products here that we're giving back out to the community to help with that protein deficit that individuals and families are looking for when they are food insecure.
Well, Purdue Farms is making its largest national donation of 3.3 million pounds of chicken, providing 2.75 million meals nationwide. Still ahead, more questions over the handling of ARPA funds in Baltimore City. The latest report confirming previous reports on misspending.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, why time appears to be on Donald Trump's side.
Taking a look at your weather headlines. We've got a lot more weather coming. We at least have a break. Tonight, it's just going to be calm and chilly, but we have a nice temperature recovery, followed by some weekend rain that's on the way. We're going to talk about which days you might need the umbrella, which ones you'll get through just fine coming up.
A federal judge blocks the implementation of a sweeping new Texas immigration law. That measure was set to take effect March 5th. It would give state law enforcement the power to arrest people suspected of entering the country illegally. Governor Greg Abbott argues the law is needed to deter illegal crossings at the border. The judge sided with the Biden administration in this instance and granted a preliminary injunction saying the measure would conflict with federal immigration law. Now, Texas officials expect to appeal. President Biden touches down in Texas, underscoring the critical role immigration issues will play in this election cycle. The president is visiting the Rio Grande Valley. For nearly a decade, it's been the busiest corridor for illegal crossings. The president's administration has been focusing on increasing legal pathways for immigrants to deter people from crossing on foot illegally. The president is expected to use that trip to blast Republicans and former President Trump for tanking a bipartisan border security deal. Trump is also expected in Texas today with an opposing message. He'll visit Eagle Pass. That area currently is seeing the most crossings. A state park has become a symbol of defiance across the administration's immigration policies. The results are in for Wednesday's national question of the day. We asked, do you approve or disapprove of President Biden's handling of the issue of crime in the United States? 9% of you said you approve, 91% said they disapprove. The prosecutors wanted to have Donald Trump's criminal trials wrapped up well before Election Day in November, but a series of setbacks is complicating that. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
At the moment, time appears to be on Donald Trump's side.
We fight like hell.
As it looks less and less likely that his criminal cases will be completely wrapped up before voters head to the polls in November.
The former president's lawyers have been adept at trying to postpone all the cases, and it looks like, at least on a number of them, they're having success.
The latest setback coming Wednesday when the Supreme Court agreed to hear Trump's immunity case in D.C., preventing the federal trial over his role on January 6th from moving forward until after they rule. The court set oral arguments for the week of April 22nd.
I was surprised to see the date is April 22nd. It's so far out that it makes it difficult for this case to be heard before the election.
Another setback underway in the Georgia election interference case.
Did you lie to Miss Merchant when you told her facts about Mr. Wade and Miss Willis's relationship?
Proceedings disrupted and delayed by allegations of ethical violations by District Attorney Fani Willis. Hearings underway to determine the timeline of her romantic relationship with the man she hired as special counsel, Nathan Wade.
I recall him stating that at some point they were dating.
If the judge determines Willis and Wade started dating before she hired him and created a conflict of interest, the case will be assigned to a different prosecutor.
And that will really stall that prosecution in a significant way.
Even if the judge allows Willis to stay on the case, the defense will likely appeal, dragging the case out further. And in Florida, the classified documents case could be pushed back due to slow security clearances for the defense.
The only case still on track is Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's case in New York surrounding hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. That trial is set to begin March 25th. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
That brings us to our national question of the day. Do you believe former President Trump's criminal trials should be delayed until after the election? To make your voice heard, head to foxbaltimore.com and click on the Pulse tab.
Good afternoon or evening, everyone. Happy Leap Day. We only get one of these every few years or so. Therefore, it's kind of a rarity around here. We get one extra day of February. But the good news is, as we tick into March, we're going to start seeing things looking a little bit more like springtime. We're just about done with winter, I think. We're hoping that we can start tracking into some more spring-like weather. Last night was not one of those. Man, did it come in like springtime weather, but it went right back to winter-like temperatures. We're in the 40s right now. The wind was up and it was really blowing a lot of things around. Our temperatures around the region still showing some of that colder air just to the north. But if you look to the south here, 50 starting to already creep back in. What's going to happen is we're going to have something called return flow, which is just what meteorologists would consider the southerly winds to bring in some warmer air into the region. But it's not going to happen until we get a little bit later into tomorrow or so. Tonight's going to be calm but chilly. We're not going to have any more wind problems, so temperatures will drop to around freezing by midnight and will bottom out in the upper 20s or so. We have high pressure keeping things at least beautiful, but otherwise chilly, but that is not going to last for long at all. Our next weather maker is gathering some strength out towards Texas and moisture, and it's going to be pushing right towards us as we head into the weekend. That is going to bring us our next chance of rainfall, not far away. So let's take you through it with Future Scan now. Starting at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, so bright and early. 30s, and it's pretty chilly, of course, right around freezing or even a degree or so below, but we should recover pretty quickly back to the 50s with mostly sunny skies much of the day. But this is now the afternoon. We'll start to see clouds thickening up as the evening rolls on, and that is when we'll start to begin to see our chances of rain coming in. Likely going to see the rain falling overnight Friday night into Saturday morning. We will see it most likely widespread across the area here, and it's going to last most, if not all of the morning, into much of the afternoon. I think once we get past like 3 or 4 o'clock, we'll start to see some improvements, keeping the clouds, but maybe we'll get at least a little bit of rain to taper off so we can salvage a Saturday evening for everybody. Otherwise, I would say, if you couldn't tell already, car wash forecast, I would definitely say tomorrow's not a good idea, just because we're going to have that rain overnight. It's just going to ruin your wash job. And of course, Saturday, no good. But Sunday and Monday, we're already drying out. So this is a good news. Once we get past your Saturday afternoon, we'll be able to take away the rainfall from Saturday, and we get to have it completely dry on Sunday. It's looking a little bit more mild, too. Upper 50s to around 60 degrees or so. All right, 7-day forecast. Still the rain on Saturday, looking like a near certainty here, but our temperatures do not take a big jump like they just did. We'll be back to the 60s before you know it, and that lasts all next week.
All right, thank you. Maybe we'll clean that car on Sunday. Don't forget to put black magic on those wheels. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, should a Maryland teen accused of attempted murder be tried in adult court? The legal battle over a juvenile accused of trying to shoot another teen on a school bus.
A new recommendation for yet another vaccine against COVID-19. I'm Liz Bonus. What's behind it? We explain just ahead.
The CDC has just recommended seniors get another shot of the COVID-19 vaccine. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains why this 6th shot may be just what the doctor ordered.
Infectious disease specialists say this recommendation for older adults to get an additional dose of the COVID-19 vaccine is really about two things. The first is that immunity from the vaccine starts to fade in about 3 to 4 months. Advisors making this recommendation say it's now been about that long since the newest COVID-19 vaccine gave us a boost against the latest variants circulating of the coronavirus. The second is that we are just a few months away from the summer season. And if you think back,
for the past, 3 to 4 years, we've had a summer surge of COVID right around July, late June, early July timeframe, and they're concerned about that surge as well.
if you're keeping track, that means you got 3 shots from the original vaccine, at least one of the bivalent booster, and one of the most recent new and improved COVID-19 vaccines, which means this new recommendation would mean shot number 6?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah. So, but so far, I mean, it seems like every time a patient gets a booster, their immunity, is pushed back up into a protective range, and that's what we want.
If we don't get a summer surge, Dr. Blatt says, well, we'll likely go to an annual COVID-19 vaccine. And while many of us have questions about how sick we would really get right now if we got the virus, or if we really need another shot of the vaccine, he does suggest we remember this.
There's still about 2,000 people a week dying from COVID infection throughout the U.S., which is not a small number. I mean, that's pretty dramatic.
If you have questions, of course, about any vaccination, your own doctor, the best person to answer those questions. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, will proposed juvenile crime bills be effective after a series of amendments? The debate happening in Annapolis on how to hold kids accountable. A nonprofit helping clean up the city is accused of misusing thousands of taxpayer dollars. What we're learning from a Baltimore Inspector General's report. Juvenile crime is under the microscope in Annapolis. We take a closer look at the chances of the Senate's bill passing.
The Baltimore Fire Union wants to know why it's been left out. The calls from its president for the city to give firefighters a boost with federal ARPA funds.
A debate over whether a teen accused of attempted murder at the age of 14 should stand trial as an adult. The latest developments in court surrounding a teen accused of trying to kill a fellow student.
Live From WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We're following three big stories tonight. In Annapolis, the state Senate debates a youth crime bill. We're tracking the changes being made to that proposed legislation. And in a city in crisis, Fox 45 digs deeper into how the city is allocating ARPA dollars. A closer look at the new IG report on misused American Rescue Plan funds, as some of Baltimore's first responders are asking why they haven't seen any of that federal money.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. We have team coverage on the city's use of federal funding. Rebecca Pryor is reporting live on what we're learning from that IG report. Rebecca?
Well, we already learned last year that this money had been misspent, but now we're learning exactly where it went and why taxpayer watchdogs fear this could happen again.
A nonprofit handpicked by the mayor's office to help pick up trash across Baltimore City. Lazarus Wright, owned and operated by Christopher Irvin.
We're trying to get Baltimore to a better place.
Awarded a 2-year, $1.6 million Clean Court contract. To help kickstart operations, Irvin handed a $414,000 advance. But according to an email exchange between the nonprofit and the Baltimore Civic Fund, which oversees the city's nonprofit spending, within 4 months, the entire advance vanished.
They spent it all very, very quickly.
Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming launching an investigation into the spending after receiving complaints Irvin's employees weren't getting paid.
To not be paid 2 or 3 weeks is a pretty big concern for any person. So they were concerned because the money was coming out of the ARPA funds.
Back in May, the Baltimore Civic Fund quickly canceling Irvin's contract and demanding he pay $129,000 back to the city.
How much of that has been paid back?
$500.
What is the likelihood that the city will see this money again?
Not very likely. Can you squeeze blood from a turnip? I don't know.
The IG's deep dive into the nonprofit's financial records revealing over the course of the Clean Court contract, Lazarus Wright spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on separate business expenses, including a $55,000 loan payment, $68,000 paid to the IRS for outstanding taxes, $30,000 for a new work car, $56,000 for 2 work equipment items, and $96,000 for unrelated salaries, training, and insurance, totaling more than $300,000. The report also finding by April, the nonprofit's account balance in the negatives.
They borrowed from Peter to pay Paul, and they were buying things that had nothing to do with the ARPA monies.
Money mismanagement, Cummings says, isn't uncommon for nonprofits.
It's not like a normal business, so I do think that, sometimes it's better giving the money to an agency where you have that tighter fiscal oversight than you do with nonprofits.
Anyone with a basic accounting class would have seen that you don't give money to this nonprofit.
Taxpayer advocate David Williams also questioning the city's oversight. Before receiving the money in 2023, Lazarus Wright's 990 tax form from 2021 to 2022 showing a small organization, more than $73,000 in debt. Additionally, Irvin personally declaring bankruptcy and his home put in foreclosure.
They were not equipped to do this financially, or they didn't have the infrastructure to do it either.
Fox 45 sending questions to the Baltimore Civic Fund, Planning Department, and Mayor's Office, asking, was this nonprofit properly vetted? And should the city strengthen its vetting process before granting more nonprofits ARPA funding? The only response, the Mayor's Office sending a statement applauding the city for swiftly addressing the issue, but not answering our questions directly. This as the city plans to allocate another $43 million in ARPA funding to other local nonprofits over the next 2 years.
Do you think that a situation like this could play out again?
Oh, absolutely. I think, the one thing about I see things happen over and over again. And I think hopefully lessons will be learned from this one.
And last week, 2 mayoral candidates also requested an independent audit of the city's ARPA spending. We reached out to the mayor's office asking for a response to that request, but as of news time tonight, still no answers. Reporting live from the newsroom, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. During the pandemic, the federal government gave the city of Baltimore $641 million in ARPA funding, but that money has to be spent in a set period of time, and the clock is ticking. The one-time gift from the federal government must be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026. During a hearing in front of the city council last week, the mayor's chief recovery office admitted the city's slow spending could be a problem.
It's a lot of money that has to be moved in a short period of time. The obligation deadline is for sure going to be a challenge.
Well, ARPA funds are formally assigned to a project and approved by the city's Board of Estimates. 3 years into the ARPA program, and the city has only obligated half of the funding and only spent 29%. The slow spending and what the city has spent on the money on, has led to harsh criticism from some of the mayor's rivals in the 2024 election.
The fire department not getting zero amount, which is a 24/7-day-a-week operation, could have benefited.
Completely frittered away to repay donors and developers and help improve your re-election chances.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker continues our live team coverage now with how the city's use of that ARPA money is being called into question and why the fire union says they could have used the money. Maxine?
Well, Mary, not a cent was given to the fire department, an essential city service who has had trouble with staffing and equipment shortages for years now. Union President Matthew Coster tells us they're the busiest fire department with calls per capita in the country and nearly 200 men and women short today. He says it's frustrating to be denied money because there's so many things they could have used it for.
We could definitely use that money. You know, we were the first line of defense during COVID, and that's definitely something that we're disappointed in. A lot of our firehouses are over 100 years old, and, you know, guys are using their own money to fix up firehouses and keep it together with furniture and the kitchens and outdated bathrooms and everything else for, you know, today's standards.
Well, the mayor's budget last year did call for a $15 million increase for the fire department, but Coster says it's never enough. We did reach out to the mayor's office today asking why no money was allocated of ARPA funds for the fire department, but we are still waiting on a response tonight. Reporting live, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Breaking tonight, a third person has died following Tuesday morning's row home fire in Highland Town. Fire officials say a 13-year-old died at the hospital last night. A 22-year-old and 8-year-old have also died, but it's unclear what started the fire. More than 20 residents have been displaced. The Baltimore Fire Department is now working with Highland Town residents to plan a fire safety sweep in that neighborhood, installing smoke detectors and providing safety tips. Juvenile crime legislation is in the spotlight today. This time, senators debated the best path forward. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been tracking the amendments and joins us live from the State House to explain what comes next. Mackenzie.
Yeah, Kai, so today it was the Senate's turn, and the version we heard on the floor today in the Senate chamber was similar to the one we heard yesterday over on the House floor. However, there is one major difference, and it's how these lawmakers plan to handle these youngest offenders stealing cars.
Please secure the chamber doors.
More than halfway through this year's legislative session,
members will please take your seats.
And it's time to tee up the juvenile crime debate among state senators.
The state's attorneys didn't get everything they wanted in this bill, and the public defenders don't have everything that they wanted in the bill.
On the floor, the plan from top Democrats. In the Senate, 12 amendments came out of the committee led by Senator Will Smith. Like the House's version, the Senate's plan calls for reports to be filed by police with the Department of Juvenile Services anytime a kid is arrested, makes changes to the intake process, extends probation for certain offenses, and expands the list of charges kids between 10 and 12 years old can face. The Senate's version includes gun crimes.
Because these are serious, extremely serious offenses that align more closely to those crimes of violence. And so this gives the system the option, the ability to have restricted or supervised detention. Not that it has to happen, not that it even will happen, but that it could happen for the safety of the child and for the safety of our community.
But this version requires the child in need of supervision or SINS petition to be filed whenever a kid between 10 and 12 is caught stealing a car.
The options on the table, not that it's a predetermined outcome, but the options on the table for SINs is that you cannot be housed or detained in a facility with other delinquent children.
In the House version, kids that young accused of stealing a car would automatically be taken to a diversionary program after the first offense instead of going to DJS.
The clerk will take the call.
On the floor,
Has everyone recorded their vote?
several amendments were requested and questions raised, including from State Senator Alonzo Washington.
We're talking about penalties for kids, right, that commit these crimes, but we're not talking about penalties for adults that do not do their job to make sure that these young people are flowing through the system correctly.
No, I hear you. So this whole thing is about accountability all throughout the system.
Despite concerns about a lack of accountability for DJS and other agencies involved, senators giving it the green light.
Any further amendments to the bill or its title?
Moving it forward a step with the amendments.
Senate Bill 744 is hereby ordered printed for third reading.
I'm confident that with the bills that we've passed, the laws we passed will be successfully implemented.
Chairman Smith says DJS will have to follow whatever new laws are passed. Faced with differing approaches to dealing with young car thieves.
Is that something that you're willing to fight for when this goes into a pre-conference committee, or are you willing to go with where the House is?
No, we're gonna sit down and we're negotiate. We'll see whatever makes sense. I feel confident and comfortable with what we did, and I think that it moves the ball forward significantly.
We see juvenile crimes in our community.
Republican Senator Johnny Ray Selling argues there needs to be more included to help curb juvenile violence.
We're just touching the hem of the garment. We need to do more.
But that doesn't mean he's against the plan now.
As it stands right now, would you vote in support of the legislation?
I would support this legislation. I think the overall was supported.
The legislation inching closer to the finish line, where Governor Wes Moore will decide whether to sign it into law.
Now, the Senate is expected to vote again on this proposal on Monday. Tomorrow, it'll be up to the House again for another vote. From there, I'm told the discrepancies in these two versions of the legislation could be determined and hashed out outside of a conference committee. We're live in the State House. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, one state's attorney we spoke with this week slammed the changes to the bill, saying amendments are watering down the crime plan. He says with all the alterations, kids still will not be held accountable.
No one is offended by giving young people treatment, but DJS doesn't have the resources nor the programs, and instead of holding children accountable for, in many instances, increasingly violent crime, we're putting them into a system that cannot deal with the numbers of children that are being forwarded to them for treatment.
Today, Fox 45 News sent several questions to state's attorneys across Maryland, including, do you feel state lawmakers are watering down efforts to hold juveniles accountable? Efforts are underway to delay juvenile accountability laws. Effective dates until January 2025. Is this too late? And lawmakers are refusing to address the Child Interrogation Protection Act this session. Is that a mistake? 5 states' attorneys have responded so far, with only 2 of them answering our questions directly. For months, we have heard from frustrated states' attorneys across the state of Maryland, including John McCarthy there in Montgomery County, fighting to hold young offenders accountable, who say current laws keep them from doing that. And that brings us to our question of the day. Should juveniles face criminal charges for stealing cars? 99% of those who voted say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Millions of dollars have been cut from the Baltimore County Schools budget. Fox 45 News takes a closer look at just how much the budget crunch will impact students, starting with class size.
A teen accused of trying to shoot another student on a bus is in court today. What we're learning about the suspect named Baby K.
That blast of cold air, did it hit hard last night? We're going to talk about some warmer temperatures that will be recovering, but also chances for rain as we go into the weekend. We're going to track it for you and tell you which days will be the dry ones coming up.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
One of the teens accused of a brutal attack on a student in Prince George's County is back in court. The 15-year-old known as Baby K is accused of beating another teen and trying to shoot them on a bus. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. has been following this story for months. He joins us live now with the latest from court. Brad?
Yeah, so what this is today is a juvenile waiver hearing. This guy is charged as an adult right now. His defense attorneys want him handled as a juvenile. And I should tell you that we had to get our lawyers involved to get us in the court because the defense attorney tried to get the media excluded. We actually won and were allowed in. And we felt it was important because in this day and age, when we're talking about juvenile crime, juvenile justice reform, we wanted to follow this case through. So in court today, it was a startling sight. This young man, 15 years old, but he looks younger. He is small. He is slight of frame. The sheriff's deputies guarding him were towering over him. He is a child, and yet he is accused of very serious crimes.
It was a crime first reported by 7 News last May, an attempted murder caught on camera in a Prince George's alternative middle school bus. 3 teens jumped aboard attacking a 14-year-old. One with a gun tried to shoot the victim in the head 3 times. The gun failed to fire, so they beat the child. The victim's mother telling us her son was badly hurt.
He's just taking it one day at a time. He had knots on his head, a purple and blue eye.
It took days for police to identify the suspects, and when they did, they rushed to get a lookout posted for 15-year-old Caden Holland, the one allegedly holding the gun on the bus. He was better known by the street name used in his rap videos, Baby K. Police sharing the photo of the juvenile Holland after learning he was also suspected in the district of murdering the older sister of one of his suspected accomplices on the school bus. The police hunt for Holland taking more than 2 weeks.
I'm at fear. I want him to be caught. I don't feel safe.
As for the driver of that school bus, the head of her union says she still hasn't fully recovered.
People deal with things in so many different ways, and this lady still running this through her head about what could have happened. It's real, and it's still happening today.
Yeah, and that hearing is still happening. It is not going to finish today. It will continue next week. But we heard from some staffers at the Department of Juvenile Services, and we learned some interesting fact about this man's history. Now, Mackenzie Frost was just in Annapolis talking about juvenile justice reform and the effort to lengthen the probation period for juveniles. Well, in this case, this young man was previously found, we learned, with a handgun. He was given 6 months probation and told to do a number of tasks and seek treatment. He was told to write an essay, 200-word essay on gun violence. Well, we learned he didn't do any of that. His treatment was called unsuccessful, and after the 6-month period, they simply closed out his case. Well, that was March 2023. This alleged crime on the school bus happened May 2023. In Upper Marlboro, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's nice to have at least some sunshine out there. This is, of course, the last day of February, but one that we don't see often. Happy Leap Day. We have the sunshine, of course, but we also have the chilly temperatures. It was a blasting cold air that really made its way into last night. I mean, normally it creeps in. This was not the case. We saw winds gusting 50, 60 miles per hour. Right now, very light wind around 11 miles per hour, but 46 degrees. We're continuing to at least see some more sunshine up to the north, too. 46 up in Towson. So 40s mostly everywhere. We have pretty much capped off what we would say is going to be the chilliest day and night that we're going to have in the next 7. I'm very happy to say it's going to be warmer as we head into the next several days. We're dropping pretty cold tonight, likely below freezing as we get past midnight. We have high pressure in place for now, keeping the clear skies around, but that does mean we'll get cold overnight, Here is our next weather maker, not far away. Down in the south into Texas, we're going to see moisture streaming overhead here much sooner than later. But we get one more quiet and mostly dry day tomorrow. So let's take you through it. This is in the morning. We're near freezing, but we warm up to around the mid-50s under lots of sunshine. By the afternoon, we're going to start to see clouds thickening up. And as we head into Friday night, the rain starts to move in, likely after midnight, and then it will definitely be around for your Saturday morning, lingering through most of the day. By the late afternoon, we may finally start to see it taper a bit. Temperatures not too cold. We're in the low 50s, so we're going to say cool to mild, but it's not going to linger around all weekend either. We'll get rid of it in time so that maybe you could salvage the second half of your Saturday, at least your evening, fairly dry. But well, again, it's mainly going to be the morning through the early afternoon on Saturday. Sunday looking just fine, so it's going to be umbrellas for Saturday and sunglasses for Sunday. Now, if you're not looking forward to this colder air, it's one of those things that's only going to be around for a very short time. As we've been talking about, we're going to see it go right back to seeing temperatures well above average as we move into next week. In fact, hardly anything to talk about where we see a big cold blast coming. This may hopefully be one of the last that we see for some time, but we're transitioning now to more of our spring months, which means our average high is around 50. We're going to be above that into the 60s starting on Sunday. And it looks like we have another shot at some rainfall as we move into the middle of next week. But again, doesn't look too terrible. We're going to at least be in a nicer pattern to come.
You could be paying more for alcohol and tobacco to help the state fix a budget deficit. Why one taxpayer advocate says he's not sure a proposed tax hike would really fix Maryland's problems.
It's rare to see 4 #1 overall picks on the field at the same time, but fans here at Ed Smith Stadium, they had a front row seat. More on the much anticipated matchup between two of them. That's coming up next on Sports Unlimited.
We are following some breaking news just into our newsroom. The State House in Annapolis is on lockdown. Everybody is being evacuated from the building. FOX45's Mackenzie Frost is there. She's been pushed outside. She joins us live right now on the phone. Mackenzie, what's going on? Actually, we have a shot of her right now. Outside, we just talked to you inside. What's going on?
Yeah, Mary. So we're actually using a live view app. So we're coming to you from my photographer Morgan's cell phone right now. So I apologize if the audio isn't exactly crystal clear. But right as we were ending our live shot at the top of the hour talking about the juvenile crime legislation, we had some members of law enforcement rush over to us, started yelling, telling us that we needed to immediately get outside and to leave because there was some sort of threat. So as we ran downstairs, I grabbed my jacket and we ran outside. That's when we saw a large police presence. I'm going to step away to try and get a little bit closer to the cell phone so you can hear me. We can see a lot of law enforcement going inside to the State House right now. There are police cars with their lights on. It looks like at every intersection around the State Circle. If people are familiar with where we are in Annapolis, you know that the State House sits in a circle and there are different spokes of roads, and that's where you can see law enforcement vehicles blocking each one of those spokes. Now, a few moments ago, we just saw more law enforcement going inside the State House. They had long guns on them as they made their way inside. I've been texting with some staffers who are still inside the building. Actually, I'm told that they are being told to stay in place where they are, essentially a shelter in place. We don't have a lot of information at this moment. All we know is that there is some sort of threat, a large police presence. I can tell you there is some helicopters circling overhead right now. We're going to try and get more information for you as much as we can as soon as possible, and I'll let you know when we learn that.
Mackenzie, if we can stay on this for just a moment, we know the State House is crowded at this hour. There's still lots going on. The folks who are in the chambers or in their offices are in shelter in place. Do we know where the governor is or where some of the leadership teams are at this point?
Based on the timing of when this happened, I don't believe there are many lawmakers who are inside the State House. I know a lot of committees have their meetings in the various office buildings off-site, the two buildings, the Senate and the House office buildings. That's where a lot of lawmakers are. I know one of the spokesperson or the chief communications director for Senate President Bill Ferguson is inside. He's with other members of the press, I'm told. So as of right now, it's unclear exactly where some of the key leadership is. I don't anticipate the governor would be inside in this moment, especially given this level of threat and the sense of urgency that we were told to evacuate the building. I have to imagine the same was said for the governor as well. I'm going to start sending some text messages right now. Like I said, we just made our way outside, trying to figure out what was going on. Let me work to see what I can find and see where I can find out where some of these key leadership members are and more information.
Okay, we'll let you catch your breath. Thank you for that. But again, the State House has been evacuated. The threat of some kind of threat, we don't know if it's credible or not, and we will talk to Mackenzie as soon as she gets more information. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Just how big will class size get? Pressing the Baltimore County superintendent on what type of impact budget cuts could have on students. The trial over the death of Baltimore police officer Kiona Holly continues. The damaging evidence we're hearing in court today. We're going back to that breaking news. The State House in Annapolis is on lockdown. Just happened minutes ago.
We just heard from Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost, who says everyone has been evacuated from the building, and you can see there's a heavy police presence around the State House, which is in a circle. Vehicles are now blocking the circle, and helicopters are circling overhead. We are told some people are still sheltering in place. Mackenzie is gathering more information right now, and she'll join us live again as soon as she gets up to speed. Week one of the trial for the murders of Baltimore police officer Kiana Holly and civilian Justin Johnson has wrapped up.
Elliot Knox is charged with both December 2021 murders, along with his co-defendant Trayvon Shaw, who is yet to be tried.
Alexa Ashwell just walked out of court and joins us live with today's testimony. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, Mary, today's testimony and evidence heavily centered on forensic evidence. The state also presented the jury with a number of pieces of video, including the moments before and after Officer Kiana Holly was ambushed. December 16th, 2021, 1:13 a.m. The state shows the jury surveillance video of a car appearing near the 4400 block of Pennington Avenue, where BPD Officer Kiana Holly was ambushed. 1:16 a.m. The jury views video of two men walking down nearby Hazel Street. 1:17. The two men are seen turning onto Pennington Avenue. 1:18. Both men are seen running back up Hazel Street. Seconds later, that same car is seen leaving the area. The state then showing the jury footage from a speed camera that captured Officer Holly's cruiser crashing through a fence and into a park. The state then focusing on forensic evidence, including ballistics and DNA. A firearms examiner took the stand, testifying to his examination of the two weapons seized by police, a semi-automatic pistol with two duct-taped magazines and a Glock 22 handgun. The examiner detailing the result of his test fires and comparison of shell casings, testifying the markings were consistent, fired from the same firearm. Two forensic scientists testified to collecting swabs for DNA and/or fingerprints, including from Elliot Knox and Trayvon Shaw, as well as from both weapons and the inside of Elliot Knox's car. A DNA analyst also took the stand, testifying Shaw and Knox's DNA was found on one of the weapons. Knox's attorney cross-examining this DNA testimony the most, saying results don't indicate direct or indirect transfer. The DNA analyst confirming. In day two testimony, Elliot Knox confessed to being at both homicides and then hiding the weapons in his friend's house, but told investigators it was Trayvon Shaw who actually pulled the trigger. Knox even identifying himself and Shaw as the two men in the video from Officer Holly's murder scene. When asked Shaw's motive, Knox told police, "I don't know. I didn't even know it was a lady until today." Officer Holly's family quiet after week one, facing some especially emotional moments in court, including footage played of officers trying to save Holly's life.
It's been challenging. It's been challenging, but we have each other. We are a praying family.
In addition to Officer Holly's family, we've also seen Johnson's family in the courtroom, as well as a number of BPD officers, some who personally knew Officer Holly. So far this week, the state has called at least 16 witnesses to the stand, and we're told still has more. That will resume Monday morning. Reporting live in downtown Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. We've been following this trial every step of the way. For our full coverage from inside court, head to foxbaltimore.com.
After the Baltimore County School Board approves its new $2.5 billion budget, some are sounding the alarm over cuts compared to last year's spending plan. The new budget comes in at $104 million less than last year's. Some of those cuts are from reducing the number of jobs, adjusting teachers to match enrollment at schools, and increasing class sizes. But tonight, we're learning those class size adjustments may be more significant than originally anticipated. Fox 45's Jessica Babb joins us live with details on this. Jessica.
Baltimore County Public Schools says the average class sizes for high school will increase to 23 students. But a teacher reached out to me saying their class sizes are already well above that, and they're only expecting them to get even bigger. In a message asking about Baltimore County Public Schools budget, a BCPS teacher relaying their reality, saying some class sizes are big. As BCPS reduces hundreds of mainly vacant positions in their newest budget and reallocates resources to better meet blueprint mandates. Class size averages in grades 3 to 5 will get smaller, but in middle and high school, they're going up. BCPS says the average class size in high school will go from 21 to 23.
Our goal is really to move Baltimore County forward.
But the high school teacher who emailed me says average class sizes in core content areas are already in the mid-30s. They say their smallest class is 28 students, and their others are 33 or more. They say it's a similar story across their department and with other core subjects. In the email, they say they've been told to expect even bigger class sizes next year. So I took those concerns to Baltimore County Public School Superintendent Miriam Rogers.
I've talked specifically about the differences between the current state and FY24 and what are the different steps and the different approach we're going to take in FY25 so that the class averages can be closer, matched to the staff allocation that we're providing and the different tools that we've already created and the training that we're going to provide.
She says they'll be working to make sure class sizes are more balanced, but even so,
following some class sizes getting bigger, are there any concerns that it will negatively impact students' education?
No. And I want to share that because this is not going to be left to chance. We are going to be extremely intentional.
School Board Chair Tiara Booker-Dwyer says while she understands concerns about class sizes,
when growth happens, it hurts a little bit.
And with the focus on reducing class sizes in elementary school to make sure the youngest students stay on grade level, she says change is coming for high schools.
One of the things that the blueprint is encouraging, especially at the high school level, is encouraging opportunities for dual enrollment, apprenticeships. And so the reality of it is by the time blueprint is fully implemented, our high schools are not going to look the same. We won't have as many kids in the buildings.
What is the answer in the meantime for students who might be stuck in really large classes?
And so the answer right now is that we are actively monitoring those class sizes.
Another way the school system is trying to meet blueprint mandates is by expanding resources and providing more positions in early childhood education. Live in Baltimore County, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
The city of Baltimore is being awarded $7.2 million as part of a statewide opioid lawsuit. The state just settled the suit against Walmart for its role in worsening the opioid crisis in Maryland. Mayor Scott, in a statement, promised that the money would go toward drug addiction recovery efforts in Baltimore and said while this will not restore the lives lost to opioid addiction, it's an important step for accountability in the crisis.
Back to the breaking news out of Annapolis. The State House is on lockdown right now with everyone evacuated from the building, including our own Fox 45 news crew. Some, though, are sheltering in place.
That's right. Mackenzie Frost is live right now and joins us with new information. Mackenzie?
I just got a statement from Governor Westmore's office confirming the State House is on lockdown for what they're calling a security threat. I'm just reading the statement from the team, and it says no other information is available at this time. The governor's office is encouraging everyone to shelter in place if they're on the Capitol grounds. You can see some more people starting to make their way out of the State House right now. This is more employees. It looks like staff members as well as members of the press corps are all hanging out a little bit right here. There's another large group of people making their way outside the State House. And I have to remind everyone that we're bringing you these live images from our cell phone because all of our equipment is inside. We were told to immediately evacuate the staff of the State House as soon as we were live with you at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock. That's when we had law enforcement rush over to us telling us that there was a security threat at the State House and we needed to evacuate immediately. Earlier, we saw several law enforcement personnel make their way inside the State House again, rushing inside. They had long guns out, and I was told that members were going through each room inside the State House, checking, even shining a flashlight inside to see what was going on. At this point, Again, we still don't have much information about the details of this security threat. All we know is that there is some sort of threat. And again, helicopters continue to circle, large police presence here at the State House grounds. If you're familiar, it's the circle with all of the different spokes. Those do seem to be blocked at this moment. I'm going to step aside again so you can take another look. We're all just kind of hanging out right here at Lawyers Mall, waiting for more information. Mary, earlier you asked me where some of the key leadership members were. I'm told that that information will likely not be shared with the public at this time due to this ongoing investigation. I'm going to continue to try and figure out more information about what's going on and if other members who are in separate buildings, the House office building, the Senate office building, if those members are being told to shelter in place as well. I'll keep you updated. Mary and Kai.
All right, Mackenzie reporting live from outside the State House, which is on lockdown and now trying to fully evacuate it as well.
Yeah, and we want to point out there is a significant amount of Mackenzie knows. And Mackenzie, is she still able to hear us? You can't hear us, Mackenzie?
Yep, I can hear you.
I know you're down there often. I've covered a significant amount of State House. There is, even before September 11th, there is an enormous amount of security to get into that, the oldest operational State House in the country. And so it's not easy. So I'm wondering, do they believe they may have a person who's a security threat, or has a threat perhaps been called in?
That's unclear at this point, Kai. I've been hearing different things from different people who were inside the building a little bit longer than I was, so I don't want to report anything that we don't have confirmed at this moment. All we know is that there is